A couple of updates and cybersecurity and digital transformation. Take 0. I'm actually holding the camera, so I can't give you a full clap. So, as you guys might know, I'm on sabbatical. I'm in upstate New York on Cayuga Lake. Actually, I have my ISO set to manual, so I'm not going to adjust it. But over the last few days, I got a bunch of questions from our team and from a client. I'm going to tell you actually the story about it related to cybersecurity and digital transformation. And so over the last 3 days, there's been a series of LinkedIn posts that we've done Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then today here on Friday, I'm shooting this video to talk about, kind of put a bow on it and answer the questions as it relates to cybersecurity. Primarily, is digital transformation increasing security risk for an organization? And can an organization use security as a reason not to digitally transform? Obviously, the answer is no. But a couple of other announcements. So the Unified Namespace Handbook comes out next week. Today, I think, is the 7th. So it comes out in 8 days. I've actually been shooting the audiobook here. I'm like in the middle of nowhere in a very quiet place, so I can get the audiobook shot. But the ebook and the paperback book will be ready here shortly. Also, I'm on sabbatical till the end of August. We have a bunch of like really cool, exciting things going on content-wise that I'm pretty stoked about. And we have a lot of speaking engagements scheduled for the rest of the year. But with that, let's get to the security piece. All right, so to start, where did this all come from? So there was a couple of our integrator partners, as well as a couple of our clients and a couple of our business development folks, including some people from the community, came to me and said, hey, Walker, we're hearing more and more manufacturers are pausing digital transformation initiatives because they've recently suffered a ransomware attack, and they're hitting pause to like regroup or whatever on their digital transformation initiatives. And do you think that's a good idea? And so my initial answer was obviously no, that's a terrible idea. But I realized pretty quickly that I don't think people understand why it's a bad idea. So I needed to explain why it is that pausing your digital transformation initiative because you've been exposed to some cybersecurity threat is literally the exact opposite of what you should be doing. And so in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the series of LinkedIn posts that talk about digital fluency. I'm going to talk about what are the major risks that manufacturers actually face when it comes to cybersecurity. I think if you ask the average person, what is the biggest risk that manufacturers face, they're going to say something like, the average layperson is they envision, anonymous. Some hacker in Russia is wearing a mask, and they're just able to magically infiltrate your network. They watch something on some movie, and they if you're connected to the internet, they can get you. All right. Two things as it relates to security. Number one, security doesn't exist. All security measures are basically hurdles to make the effort to gain access to someone's data greater than the value of the data. Okay, that's all security really is. They're mitigation strategies. So no one is actually ever secure. So just like in our society, no one is ever actually secure, right? I mean, here in the United States, many people may not know that the police are under no obligation to protect you, right? For example, there's no legal requirement that the police protect you from an invader or from somebody attacking you on the street. They can choose not to protect you. So what do we do to protect ourselves in society? Well, first thing we try to do is try to educate ourselves. We try to be able to recognize the risks as we see them, and then mitigate on the fly. Okay. Digital transformation, when we talk about digital fluency, digital transformation and digital fluency is about increasing an organization's ability to recognize risks on the fly. Not just some small, tiny group in the IT department, but the entire organization. Okay? All right? And so the primary focus in every organization should be to increase digital fluency in their organization as it relates to mitigating cybersecurity risks. All right, with that, let's kind of go over, what are the key risks facing manufacturers, right? Now I'm going to go over these LinkedIn posts. So the primary risk facing manufacturers as it relates to cybersecurity, number one, first and foremost, is phishing attacks. I mean, about 85% of all cybersecurity attacks are phishing attacks, okay? Do you know who falls for phishing attacks? Fools, okay? The people who are ignorant, people who are, they're not paying attention. They don't know how to recognize the risk in a phishing attack. What is a phishing attack? There are really common ones like on Facebook. It might be somebody, a hacker, sends you a message and says you need to reset your password. Click on this link. You click on that link, and it looks like you're logged in for Facebook. You put in your username and your password. What you're actually doing is filling out a form telling the hacker what your username and your password is, right? So how do you mitigate that? Well, what you do is you educate people to that risk. Okay, you not just that specific risk, but you educate people on how it is that passwords actually get reset. Okay, and it's never through an instant message. And if you are going to reset your password, you always go to the official encrypted website. So let's say I got that message. All I have to do is, instead of clicking on that link, all I do is go to facebook.com and I go into my settings and I go and change my password. That requires education. What are the best practices for changing passwords? Okay. Digital transformation is about increasing the fluency, the digital fluency of the people in your organization so they understand that stuff. The longer an organization goes without increasing the digital fluency of their workforce, the more and more they are at risk. Not the less. The more they're at risk. All right, so number one, 85% of all attacks are phishing attacks. I'll tell you a little story. In our organization, there was a business development person who fell for a phishing attack. It was more of a fraud thing. He didn't violate his password or anything. He didn't get his account stolen from him. Basically, someone sent an email, a hacker sent an email to an employee using an email address that looked a lot like my email address. And in that email address, there was a request for, buy I need you to buy $2,500 worth of gift cards and send them to me. And this person did that without reaching out to me on Teams, without sending me a text message, he literally went and bought thousands of dollars worth of gift cards. He sent the numbers, replied to that email, or actually, the way we figured it out was he didn't reply to the email. He sent me the email and said, "Hey, I got you those gift cards you asked for." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Fortunately, the hacker never got the gift cards, right? And I ended up reimbursing the employee for the mistake. Now, should I have done that? Of course not. Was I under an obligation to do that? No, but I did it because A, I can afford to do it, and B, I felt bad for the guy. But we also had to let the guy go. And the reason why was because clearly his digital fluency was too low. Like to fall for that trick means that you have a very, very low digital fluency score. And he was relatively new, and that's just kind of the way it goes. So phishing attacks are the vast majority of the risk in an organization are phishing attacks. How do you eliminate the risk for phishing attacks? You either educate the people who will fall for a phishing attack so that they have high digital fluency, or you get rid of them. What does the legacy organization do? The legacy organization says, let's lock down our entire infrastructure. Let's hand over security to the IT group, and then let's lock down the entire infrastructure. Let's stifle all innovation within this new innovative cycle, which is one of the graphics I'm going to show you here in a second. Let's stifle all innovation, and let's not secure ourselves. You don't want to know why? Because you lock everything down and you still didn't get rid of email. I mean, you still did not mitigate the highest risk exposure. Now, how do you get rid of that? You invest in a very, very good email spam filter, okay? And it's a you know, there's a lot of really good AI technology now that's gotten a lot better at filtering out phishing attacks. However, you know, it's a moving target. When the more reliant you are on your spam filter, the more likely you are that you're gonna not see emails that you actually want to see. That they're gonna get flagged as spam even though they're not. All right, so phishing attacks number one. Malware attacks are number two. Okay, malware attacks is when somebody installs a little piece of software on a computer somewhere in the network. That software may do many things. Like it may first look for other computers on the network that have network browsing turned on. That is so that you can view them on the network, and then they may attempt to attack that machine. Okay, and then number three is ransomware, which is like ransomware is a much higher level of malware, and ransomware is basically where through malware hackers will find the data in your organization that's really, really valuable to you. Then they will figure out a way to encrypt it, lock it down so you don't have access to it, and then say you either pay us or we don't give you the cipher so that you can decipher your data. And there are a series of other ones. So you got man in the middle, you got denial of service, SQL injection, which is a big one in manufacturing, but you can mitigate that through good SQL practices. Zero-day exploit, so that is exploiting a vulnerability in a software before it's had a chance to be patched. And then credential reuse, which is probably the biggest one, and you basically solve that through two-factor authentication. All right. So but the solution to all of these are digital fluency. So let's talk about digital fluency here for just a second, okay? And I really want to drive home this point. Okay, number one, there are many, if you want to see what the actual risks are, there are many articles out there that highlight the top manufacturing attacks, and all of them, the top risk is phishing, okay? And the one that everyone's afraid of is ransomware, but you want to know how you get to ransomware? Through phishing. So here's the sequence. A hacker will do a phishing attempt to try and gain access to someone's credentials within the network. Then they will install malware to scan the rest of the network. Then they will find the data that they're looking for. They'll use the credentials that they now have control of to complete a ransomware attack. It really goes in those three steps: phishing, then a malware attack, then ransomware, in that order. So where do you start? What's the antecedent? It's eliminate the phishing. Eliminate the phishing risk. How do you do that? You do that through digital fluency, okay? And then that's where these posts came from over the last 3 days. So number one, the one that was on Wednesday was, in many of the discussions I've had with legacy manufacturers, there's an underlying current of fear, a perceived increase in security risks. It's long past time we debunk this myth and reorient our perspective. Yes, digital transformation does not increase your risk, your security risk. It lowers it through digital fluency, because the entry point for security risk is phishing attacks, 85% of which, by the way. Firstly, digital transformation doesn't increase security risks, it decreases them. Digitally mature manufacturers are a testament to this. Their digital maturity has nurtured digital fluency within their workforce. This fluency significantly reduces the odds of behaviors that might compromise organizational security. What does that mean? Through a digital transformation initiative, people have to become more adept at using digital tools. In order to become more adept at digital tools, you have to understand how those tools are used, what the risks are. You teach someone how to use a hammer, you teach them to hammer with the hammer side and not with the claw side. You also teach them not to swing behind their head. You also teach them not to smack themselves in the forehead. You learn what the risks are by using the tools, okay? And through educational methods. I'm never going to fall for a phishing attack, okay? The likelihood that I would ever fall for a phishing attack, it would have to be so unbelievably sophisticated for someone like me to fall for it, for one of our engineers to fall for it. For, if you look at our most advanced customers, for them to fall for a phishing attack, that is the highly digitally fluent, the risk that the likelihood they're going to fall for a phishing attack is very, very, very low. Okay? All right. So as the workforce becomes more adept at navigating digital landscapes, we observe a corresponding enhancement in infrastructure security and safer digital behaviors. Digital fluency isn't just about understanding how to use new tools. It's about embracing a mindset that recognizes and mitigates potential risks in the digital realm. What does it mean? What it means is that digital transformation isn't an option. Moreover, the fear of increased security risks is not a valid reason to not digitally transform an organization or to even pause your digital transformation initiative. In fact, the more at risk your organization is, the more you need to lean into a digital transformation strategy. I mean, what organizations are doing is completely counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive. It's paralysis by analysis. It's paralysis by fear. Okay? We must focus on increasing digital fluency to navigate this transformation with minimized risks. When I talked about one of the interesting things that organizations are doing with these innovation cycles. All right, so if you look at these innovation waves, right? We're in the 5th and 6th wave of innovation. Organizations are using the fear of a security risk, okay, to not innovate during these waves. Digital tools are the key to innovation in manufacturing today. And if security is the reason you're afraid, then what you need to do is hire more digitally fluent people who can tell you there's nothing to be afraid of. Here are the tools that we need to use. Here's how we need to educate. Here's how we mitigate those risks. Okay? All right. The second LinkedIn post was a follow-up to the digital fluency. And we'll link this first post in the description below. The second one was to explain what digital fluency is. Okay? So we use the term digital fluency. Digital fluency is actually a KPI that we as an organization measure other organizations to figure out when is it that they can take over complete ownership of the digital transformation initiative. If you talk about, we do iterative value in the beginning, we're doing 100% of the work. By phase 3, we're probably doing 50%. We're using digital fluency scores to figure out when it is we can hand over the ownership of digital infrastructure to our clients. So it's actually a KPI, digital fluency is. But the second post is all about what is digital fluency. That is the definition of digital fluency and what its benefits are. But the important part here is it's not a buzzword when we use when scoring digital maturity during the digital transformation maturity assessment. It's a critical KPI and it's a progress tracker. It's a yardstick for the digital transformation initiative. Digital fluency is how you measure the fluency curve. So every org struggles recruiting and retaining the employee of the future, the present day new hire. Digitally fluent from the get-go, they wield digital tools to unravel complexities. They're used to it. Now, what's interesting is if you look at Gen Xers, about 80% of Gen Xers will fall for a phishing attack. Okay, about 8 out of 10. Okay, that number is, if depending upon which studies you look at, it could be as low as 60%, as high as 80%. If you look at millennials, it's about 40%. If you look at Gen Zs, it's about 20%. Okay, so, and by the way, I'm focusing on phishing attacks because that is the vast majority of the risk. The vast majority of the risk is in phishing. And phishing is the entry point for hackers into your organization. Tricking somebody into giving up their credentials to access your organization. That's the number one risk. And it's done through email, which you never end up putting on lockdown. Okay? Every org struggles recruiting the people who have the lowest risk at falling for a phishing attack. Okay? A stark contrast to the legacy employee who embarks on a transformation journey to reach digital fluency. So looking at the broader picture, the advantage of digital fluency becomes undeniable. Digitally native organizations, driven by a unified digital strategy, thriving in a common digital ecosystem, specifically with a unified namespace architecture, and banking on data as their primary commodity, outpace legacy organizations in problem solving at an exponential rate. Take Tesla's for example, and I've talked about this. Tesla solves problems in 2 to 4 week cycles, whereas all their competitors are solving them in 12 to 16 weeks at best, which is the reason they're killing the market. And I'm shooting this video right after Tesla announced their second quarter production and earnings numbers. And it's amazing to me the number of analysts who are surprised at how Tesla continues to kill the market. To people like me, to people who understand how manufacturing actually works, It isn't a fucking surprise at all. It's a surprise, honestly, that we're not hearing about mass layoffs within the major auto manufacturers. That's the actual surprise. The surprise is we're not hearing about economic pressures on Ford, General Motors, Daimler, Toyota. We're not. That's the irony. Now we will hear that. I just don't know when. Okay, but digitally mature organizations are at much lower risk than digitally immature organizations because their people are highly digitally fluent and they don't fall for the easy trick. So the barrier for a hacker to get into a Tesla network is so unbelievably high, it becomes the work outpaces the value of the data. Okay? And then the last post came out today, which was talking about being digitally overwhelmed, which is why we shoot this content. We're trying to help, clarify all the messaging out there about digital transformation, Industry 4, security, etc. But what's the big takeaway from this video? The big takeaway from this video, if there's anything you take away from here, it's that takeaway is this. Digital transformation doesn't increase your security risk. It lowers it through digital fluency. Okay? And the next time you hear somebody make the argument for putting the brakes on your digital transformation strategy, the next time you hear somebody say, you know what, we really shouldn't go through a digital transformation maturity assessment until our house is secure, tell them the path to security is through digital transformation. All right, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment down below. I will be back in the office shooting content. I'm just happen to be on the road this time. I'll be back in the office in the studio shooting content here in a couple of weeks. And I will be back to work full-time at the end of August. We'll see you next time.